Welcome to Sports Live Media on YouTube. It's your guy Sports Live with a sports update for February 8th, 2025. The 2025 Alabama High School Athletic Association High School Basketball Regionals are set to take place February 11th through 20th, 2025 at one of four locations across Alabama. The Northwest Regionals will take place at Wallace State College in Hanceville, Alabama. The Northeast Regionals will take place at Jacksonville State University in Jacksonville, Alabama. The Central Regionals will be played at Alabama State University in Montgomery, Alabama. The South Regionals will also be played in Montgomery, Alabama at Garrett Coliseum. The winners of each of these regionals, boys and girls, for every classification 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, and 7A, will advance to Birmingham, Alabama to play for the state tournament to crown state championships. That state tournament will be February 24th through March 1st, 2025 at the Legacy Arena at the BJCC in Birmingham, Alabama. Sub-regionals are used as a way to figure out who will play in regionals. In this video, we will go over who is playing in the regionals, not necessarily by location, and we will look at the boys and girls in all classifications 1A through 7A. So to start with, for 1A girls, it'll be Marion County versus the winner of Hubbardsville versus Addison, Lynn versus Brilliant, McIntosh versus Kinston, J.F. Shields versus Elba, Winterboro versus Spring Garden, Eider versus Appalachian or Wadley, R.C. Hatch versus Otaga Academy, Holy Spirit Catholic versus Francis Marion. In the 1A boys, it will be Hubbardsville versus Hackleburg, Meek versus Athens Bible, Southern Choctaw versus Pleasant Home or Brantley, J.F. Shields versus Georgiana, Wadley versus Skyline, Winterboro versus Oakwood Adventist, R.C. Hatch versus Francis Marion, Keith versus Maplesville. In the girls 2A will be Sulligit versus Cold Springs, Belgreen versus Decatur Heritage Christian Academy, Clark County versus Providence Christian, Luverne versus Abbeville or Cottonwood, Southeastern versus North Sand Mountain, Susan Moore versus Pisgah, Highland Home versus Lynette, Tuscaloosa Academy versus Ranford. Excuse me. In the 2A boys, it'll be Red Bay versus Tanner, Sulligit versus Decatur Heritage Christian Academy, Clark County versus Providence Christian, Luverne versus Abbeville, Susan Moore versus Pisgah, Southeastern versus Section or Sand Rock, Calhoun versus Lafayette, Tuscaloosa Academy versus Central of Coosa. For the 3A girls, it will be Phil Campbell versus Holly Pond. Mars Hill Bible versus Lauderdale County, Mobile Christian versus Northside Methodist Academy, T.R. Miller versus Thomasville, Sachs versus Sylvania, Piedmont versus Whitesburg Christian, St. James versus Hale County, and there's one other game that is to be announced. For the 3A boys, it will be Carbon Hill versus Rogers, Mobile Christian versus Houston Academy, Bayside Academy versus Wilcox Central, Piedmont versus Geraldine, Glencoe versus Fife, Montgomery Academy versus Hale County, Lee Scott Academy versus Midfield or Sumter Central, and there's one other matchup that is still yet to be determined. In the 4A girls, it'll be Dora versus Good Hope, Cordova versus Deschler, St. Michael Catholic versus Geneva, Orange Beach versus Strawn, Alexandria versus Madison Academy, Cherokee County versus either Plainview or Westminster Christian, Trinity Presbyterian versus Pleasant Grove, Montgomery Catholic versus Anniston. For the 4A boys, it will be Tarrant versus West Morgan, Fultondale versus Brooks, Orange Beach versus Dale County, Jackson versus Bullock County. Hoax Bluff versus Madison Academy. Alexandria versus Plainview. Booker T. Washington versus Fairfield. Trinity Presbyterian versus Anniston. For the 5A girls, it will be Arab versus West Point, Scottsboro versus Priceville, UMS Wright Prep versus either Andalusia or Headland, Vigor versus Brubaker Tech, Winona versus Jacksonville, Ramsey versus Springville, Selma versus Briarwood Christian, Marbury versus Shelby County. For the 5A boys, it'll be Arab versus AP Brewer, Gunnersville versus East Limestone, LaFlore versus Charles Henderson, Vigor versus Carroll, Jacksonville versus Winona or GW Carver, Ramsey versus Hayden. Montevallo versus Briarwood Christian, Selma versus Sylacauga. Excuse me. For the 6A girls, it'll be Coleman versus Hartselle, Gardendale versus Hazel Green, Murphy versus Park Crossing, Pike Road versus McGill Tulin or Saraland, Homewood versus Fort Payne, Mountain Brook versus Gadsden City, McAdory versus Benjamin Russell or Helena, and then Chelsea versus Hueytown. In the 6A boys, it will be Pinson versus May Jemison, Clay Chalkville versus Hazel Green, Theodore versus Park Crossing, McGill Tulin versus Wetumpka, Mountain Brook versus Oxford, Huffman versus Gadsden City, Benjamin Russell versus Northridge, Chelsea versus Paul W. Bryant. For the 7A girls and the 7A boys, I don't have the matchups on who's playing in the regionals, but I can tell you who will be in the regionals. For the 7A girls, the teams in the regionals are Alma Bryant, Davidson, Foley, Daphne, Auburn, Central Phoenix City, Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, Thompson, Hoover, Vestavia Hills, Albertville, Sparkman, Bob Jones, Florence, plus 2 other teams that are yet to be determined. For the 7A boys, the matchups are not available, but the teams that are in are as follows: James Clemens, Florence, Huntsville, Albertville, Hoover, Vestavia Hills, Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, Tuscaloosa County, Central Phoenix City, Auburn, Dothan, Enterprise, Daphne, Fairhope, Baker, and Mary G. Montgomery. One thing of note, in Class 1A through 7A, every team will play in an area tournament at the very end of the regular season. In that area tournament, your top 2 teams advance. In 1A through 6A, after the area tournament, they have a sub-regional tournament for 1A through 6A, and in order to qualify for regionals, you actually have to win your sub-regional game. In Class 7A, since there's so few teams in Class 7A, there's no sub-regionals, so your winner and runner-up of your area tournament ends up playing in the regionals. So again, these regionals will be taking place February 11th through February 20th of 2025, and they will be played at Wallace State Community College in Hanceville for the Northwest. They will have the Northeast at Jacksonville State University. They'll have the Central Regional and the South Regional will both be played in Montgomery, Alabama. The Central Regional will be played at Alabama State University. The South Regional will be played at Garrett Coliseum. So anyway, with this update regarding high school basketball regionals, which are coming up in the short term, thank you for taking the time to hear about what's going on with high school basketball in this realm. If you will, please hit the like button, please hit the subscribe button, please hit the notification bell so you can be made aware of when I'm going over a schedule for the regionals going on across the state of Alabama for high school basketball, when I have sports action videos, when I have sports education videos, when I broadcast live, or when I have breaking news in the sports world. Thanks and have a great day.